This is Good Morning Transfers, the place to be for all the latest transfer news, along with the best analysis and debate on all of the key stories. Manchester City are trying to sign at least 3 players this month. We'll tell you exactly who. Coming up, Arne Slot speaks to the media this hour. We'll ask him about interest in Napoli's Kvaratskhelia Kvaratskhelia. Plus, could Harvey Elliott be set to leave? Will Marcus Rashford stay in the Premier League as a new club expresses interest in wanting to sign him? And from 9:30, we'll hear from the Newcastle boss Eddie Howe. Will there be an update on the future of Martin Dubravka? Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. A big hello to Molly Stevens making her debut today. Very exciting.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you.
Flex and Dave Reed also joining me. Sorry, you didn't get as big of a welcome. And also, I promise you, we didn't decide together what we were going to wear today. We have just come in matching outfits, yes. Right, we're going to start with Manchester City as they are the most active club right now. They're trying to sign Omar Marmoush. He has agreed in principle to move to the Champions, but there is no agreement between them and his club Frankfurt. According to Sky Germany, they've also made a bid for Lens defender Abdou Kuzanov, worth in the region of £42 million. Now, City also remain in talks with Palmeiras over 18-year-old centre-back Vitor Reis. Right, let's start with Omar Marmoush then, Flex, because Frankfurt are in a pretty good position because they don't need to. Ideally, they don't want to sell him either, so they can really hold out for what they want from Manchester City.
Absolutely. This is quite unseen for Manchester City to be doing this level of business at this sort of time of the season. So for them to be after a player of Omar Marmoush's quality at this stage of the season, it puts Eintracht Frankfurt in a really good position in terms of being able to demand exactly what they feel is reasonable for a player of his quality, knowing that Manchester City really, really need him. They're going well in the Bundesliga. They're trying to push for the Champions League positions. And if a player who's having such a good season, the season of his life at the moment, they're entitled to wait and push to see exactly just how far Manchester City are willing to go and pay. They know that they've got money in the bank from the Julian Alvarez deal, which wasn't completely fully reinvested into the squad in the summer, so there's a few pennies left there. And I think Eintracht Frankfurt are completely within their rights to wait this one out, see how much they can push for and see how far City will go.
Dave, what makes Omar Marmoush so good?
Well, Flex said it, you know, he's had the season of his life. I think he's probably had the 18 months of his life. I think it's important to point out as well that Marmoush actually moved to Frankfurt on a free transfer, and he hadn't reached double figures for goals until he ended up going there. He's had an incredible 18 months or so, and that's brought a lot of attention from clubs around Europe. So why is he of interest to City, and what does he bring? Well, his rankings across the division this season have been amazing. He's top for open play goals, but there is an added string to his bow, not just open play as well. He's a set-piece specialist. He takes free kicks, corners, and penalties too. He plays in a front two alongside another striker, Ugo Ekitike. Marmoush not only able to drift wide, he can play in all the forward positions and is adept at laying on goals for teammates as well. He ranks top among all the players for assists this season, while he's 7th in the division for chances created. Pep Guardiola has also shown a liking to players who love a 1v1, and he signed Savinho and Jeremy Doku recently. Marmoush can also fulfil that criteria with the 3rd most take-ons completed across the Bundesliga this season. Now, in Club Scout for players, the big question is, how does this player's skill set transfer to our team and to our league? And out of possession, Frankfurt don't dominate the ball like City. They don't press or counter-press like City. And I guess one of the main criticisms of Guardiola's side this season has been a perceived lack of athleticism, a lack of dynamism, a lack of physicality. But despite the obvious stylistic differences between Eintracht Frankfurt and City, Marmoush is a high performer within the German side. He's covered the 3rd most distance behind 2 defenders on that list, and ranks highly as well among teammates for sprints and high-intensity runnings. His pace is also a weapon for Marmoush, so can he bring those physical qualities to this City side?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see where he's going to fit in that Manchester City team. But Molly, this is unusual for City. They don't usually do a lot of business in January, do they?
And I think, to be honest with you, Liv, that's because they haven't needed to, quite frankly. You know, Manchester City have been in a very comfortable position for a long time in the league. They've known that they had the calibre there to become champions, or at least, you know, play in the Champions League. So I think this season really does compare to previous seasons where they've spent next to nothing, actually, over the last 4 seasons in particular. If you just look at that there now, January 2024, 12.5 million. So that's their second most in 4 seasons. They didn't spend a single penny in January 2021. It's quite extraordinary, actually, that we find ourselves in this position. But I don't think any of us really realised that Manchester City didn't spend as much in January. This has sort of come to light now with Rodri's absence and obviously their lack of form. So clearly this is a big season for Manchester City to get things right, not so much for the title race potentially this season now, but more for Champions League spots.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we want to hear from you guys at home this hour as well. Would Omar Marmoush be a good signing for Manchester City? Is he what they need right now? You can get involved at home on X. Post your views using the hashtag GMT, and we'll try and read a lot of them out on the show. Right, let's get to Everton now, who are searching for a new manager. Could David Moyes be set to return? Alan Irwin is at the club's training ground for us. Well, Alan, is a return to Everton likely for David Moyes then?
It's certainly looking that way, Olivia. Things are moving quite swiftly as far as Everton are concerned. The Friedkin Group are determined to get a new man in as quickly as they possibly can, and it does look as though David Moyes is their main target. Discussions have already taken place and will continue to see if they can reappoint David Moyes as Everton manager. Hugely successful, relatively speaking, in his time here at Everton. Over 11 seasons at the football club between 2002 through to 2013. Over 500 matches in charge of Everton, and regularly finishing in the top half of the table. I think only twice during those 11 seasons did Everton finish below 8th place. He managed to get them into European football on a number of occasions, to an FA Cup final in 2009. He brought the current club captain, Seamus Coleman, to Everton in that same year. So there are many factors as to why the Friedkin Group would want David Moyes in charge. Certainly through until the end of the season, he will look for a contract that will take him way beyond that period. He has that huge experience. He knows the backroom staff here. He would bring along his trusted lieutenants, the likes of Alan Irvine and Billy McKinlay. There are still people at the football club who would be very close to David Moyes. So in that sense, he would be able to hit the ground running, and they want an appointment to take place before Everton's next game, which is against Aston Villa next Wednesday night. So if they can get David Moyes in, and I believe he would want to get cracking as quickly as he possibly could, with the January transfer window still open for another 3 weeks, whether they've got funds to bring new players in. But David Moyes will want to work with the players. As I say, he knows numerous people here, and that is a big advantage. And the important factor, of course, for David Moyes as well would be he would be taking Everton maybe to play Premier League football in that brand new stadium as well. It's imperative that Everton retain their status in the top flight of English football. That is their number one objective, and they see David Moyes as that man to ensure Everton's Premier League safety. So we're keeping a very close eye on things here at Everton's training complex, and those discussions with David Moyes will continue for a quick appointment as far as the Friedkin Group are concerned.
Thank you very much, Alan. Molly, David Moyes potentially returning to Everton, perhaps looking more and more likely sort of as the days go on. Is this a good move for them? Do you think it's the best move for them right now?
I mean, I'm always a little bit trepidous about going back to old managers. It never really sits right with me, but on this occasion, I've got to be honest, looking at the options that have been talked about, that are available, it seems that David Moyes is the right fit. He's had 11 seasons at the club previously. You can't sort of buy that Premier League experience. You can't buy that experience when it comes to knowing Everton Football Club. He knows how to operate on a smaller budget, which is indeed what Everton have at the moment. You know, he's got them into the Champions League places before on a small budget. So there's definitely flexibility there for him. I think halfway through the season, 16th in the league, you know, they just need someone in right now until the end of the season, even if it's just that. I mean, as Alan mentioned there, I'm sure David Moyes will be looking far beyond, you know, the end of this season. But, you know, out of the names mentioned, he just does seem like the most obvious fit for Everton. Right? He loves Everton Football Club. He knows Everton Football Club. Everton Football Club, they need that. They need someone who knows that club.
It would be Back to the Future, wouldn't it, for Everton?
Yeah, quite frankly.
And usually when someone goes back, and you talked about it there, when someone goes back, it's either something has usually gone wrong at a previous job, but actually David Moyes' stock is one of the highest points in his managerial career. And for him to go back, I feel like he'll be confident. And I think if he does decide to go back to Everton, he'll look at that squad and think that they've been underachieving this season. And there is, you know, a lot of people have talked about the restrictions financially at Everton, and they are still there. But that group of players, I think most people would say, have been underachieving this year. And the actual potential of that team is higher than what they've shown.
And even away from the sentimental value, at the end of the day, he's not in a job at the moment. So just from a money perspective, no buyout clause. Yeah. He's there, he's available and can walk straight into it.
Yeah, Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman took charge of the team for their FA Cup win last night. And as much as that would have got the Everton fans on board, because we know how much those two players mean to that club, as Alan was saying, with the move next season to the new stadium, you can't risk giving it to two such inexperienced, I suppose, managers, if you can call them that, until the end of the season.
Coleman's still going.
So, player manager.
Yeah. It was it's a real full circle moment. You talk about Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman, about what they mean to Everton. Over 800 appearances between them. It's really, really staggering. And Seamus Coleman still going, obviously club captain. I think in terms of an interim basis for a game or two while they sort out who comes in, actually, you talk there, Molly, about people who know the club, people where they can take the pressure off the team. The fans can sort of get behind that because they're club legends in their own right. A fine short-term fix. But for sure, Everton must stay in the Premier League. They can't afford to play games here. They've got a new stadium on the horizon. They cannot be in the Championship with that on the horizon. So I think it's a smart move to have those guys oversee a game, maybe two. But after that, I think get David Moyes in there and get him winning football matches. But a nice story for those two, though, because like I said, over 800 appearances between them. They know that club inside out, and the fans adore them.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, there's a lot going on at Everton. Not even just the results on the pitch, almost the style of football as well. There's a lot of players out of contract, isn't there?
Yeah, it's going to be a summer of change, I think, at Everton. And we've talked already and mentioned that the financial restrictions at the club, and that's been ongoing for a good few years now at Everton. And the takeover's finally gone through. I think for the owners to make this change now, yes, it's a risk. But I think if David Moyes is the person that they decide to bring in, I think that almost feels like a bit of an easy win for the owners to bring back someone like David Moyes. And in terms of players that are going to be out of contract, one of the main ones you would have to say is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, he's obviously had his injury issues. He's not reached double figures for goals in 4 years. And from the standards that he set earlier on in his career, that seems to me a very disappointing return for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Newcastle were obviously in for him in the summer and then decided to go in a different direction. So he will be one that will probably be in demand. You look at someone like Michael Keane, who's been there, I think, since 2017, a long-serving player. And then you mentioned Seamus Coleman and Ashley Young, two of the older heads in that dressing room, two of the players that bring some of the most experience of Premier League football to that Everton dressing room, and Idrissa Gueye, the final name on that selected players list. So some of those players will definitely leave. You can't rule out every single one of those players leaving at this point, because you wonder what the final 5 or 6 months of the season might have an impact on what those players want to do in the future.
Right, let's get to our transfer to keep an eye on in our one to watch then. And that player today is Millwall's Romain Esse. So, Dave, who is after him? Crystal Palace are the team that are after him. They've made an approach. Hasn't quite materialised into a full offer on the table just yet. Alex Neil, the Millwall manager, has been speaking this week saying that, yes, there is interest from Crystal Palace, but not just them either. There's a host of other clubs. He's 19 years old, signed a new contract in the summer, so it would mean a significant outlay for whoever wants to take him off Millwall. But Palace have done some great business signing players from the Championship. Dougie Freedman knows the league well. They are able to spot talents, and this boy is a talent. That is our one to watch. Millwall's Remain essay. Right, we'll be hearing from the Liverpool boss Arne Slot very shortly, and Eddie Howe as well. Plus, could Marcus Rashford be set to stay in the Premier League? Welcome back. Time now for our transfer update. As we've been discussing, Omar Mamouche has agreed a deal in principle to move to Manchester City, pending an agreement between them and Eintracht Frankfurt, who themselves are closely monitoring Nicholas Füllkrug's situation at West Ham in case Mamouche leaves. Harvey Elliott's lack of game time under Arne Slot has alerted a number of clubs from the Premier League and the Bundesliga to his potential availability in the next 2 transfer windows. Bournemouth have agreed a deal with Napoli for Philip Billing. It's a loan until the end of the season. The Serie A side are paying his wages and the deal includes an option to buy at £9 million. Jadon Philogene has completed his Ipswich Town medical. All being well, the formal announcement of his move from Aston Villa will come today. And Stuttgart are closely monitoring Chelsea's Renato Vega. He signed for Chelsea last summer and is under contract until 2031. He's made just 7 Premier League appearances so far.
To Manchester United and Marcus Rashford. Now, the latest team to stake an interest in him is West Ham. Any deal, though, for West Ham would be difficult to do given the wages that Marcus Rashford earns. But West Ham, we're told, do have a keen interest in him. Now, you would expect flex teams from the Premier League to be interested in Marcus Rashford, but West Ham, can you see that happening?
Yeah, it's quite a surprising one. I just think for Marcus Rashford at this moment of his career and where he sees himself of trying to reignite his career, I think the AC Milan link suits him better. I think if you're talking about challenging for the league, huge football club, which West Ham is as well, but AC Milan, a huge football club, and also a chance for Marcus Rashford to get a full reset away from the Premier League, away from the noise and the scrutiny that has kind of hampered him so much here. It would almost represent more of a clean break away from quite a lot of consistent issues that he's had over the last couple of years. And I also think about how Marcus sees himself, and this is no disrespect to West Ham because they are a massive football club within their own right, but I think the allure of Milan, the allure of the city out there in Milan would just appeal that bit more to Rashford and his camp. And you did talk about the wages there as well. I mean, West Ham got a lot of players on high wages, yes, and they can compete to a certain extent, but Rashford's wages are a completely different ballgame. And, you know, even AC Milan, he would be one of their top earners as well. So that could be a breaking point for him. But to be honest, Dave, there are also pros as well of why West Ham could be interested. And I do understand that.
Yeah, I mean, from West Ham's point of view and from the player's point of view, really, he knows he's going to get a run of games. He knows he's going to be number one at West Ham. And for Marcus Rashford, you feel like he needs that. He needs to feel the love. And I think the West Ham supporters would do that. I think he can look at Jesse Lingard, the way that loan deal went for him at West Ham as well. And I think he comes in at the start of something at West Ham. You know, Graham Potter coming in, he needs time to get that right. I don't like the phrase project manager, but you feel like Graham Potter is one that needs time in order to implement what he wants to do at a club. And you feel like maybe if Marcus Rashford gave West Ham the chance, that they've got an opportunity to prove to him that they can reach his level, I guess, from West Ham's point of view. So, but I guess, Molly, West Ham do have options already in the forward line.
They do have options, but clearly they're injury struck as well. I mean, Jarrod Bowen out until next month. Mikel Antonio out for the season. Nicholas Füllkrug, we spoke about him earlier, he could well be on the move to Frankfurt should Marmoush come the other way to Manchester City, and, you know, that domino effect starts happening there. So I think Graham Potter might want to make a statement signing as well, you know, in his first season in charge at West Ham. Marcus Rashford could be that statement signing. He could get a bit of love, actually, as well in England if he's hoping to impress Thomas Tuchel and get back into the England squad. So there's a few perks there, I think, for West Ham. West Ham clearly need, though, a goal scorer. And right now, they haven't got it because of various different reasons when it comes to injuries. So it feels like it would be pretty important. And I've had a little look back at what life has been like under Julen Lopetegui, and they've only netted 24 times in 20 Premier League matches. So clearly it's an area that definitely needs strengthening.
Yeah, wait and see on that one. In terms of Manchester United, just going back to them, Ahmad's new deal has now been confirmed. It was something that we were expecting to be confirmed. I mean, how important has Ahmad been to the start of Ruben Amorim? Very,
very, very important. And I think towards the back end of Ten Hag's era, and when Ruud van Nistelrooy had a 4-game stint, he was just so impressive and basically encapsulates a type of player that Manchester United have been missing. Somebody absolutely committed to the cause, fantastic ability, but has remained humble, has waited the best part of 3 to 4 years to get his chance, and has been so refreshing. And Manchester United, where there's reports about players having their price, etc., etc., Manchester United fans needed a little bit of a lift. I know that this was expected, but to see Ahmad smiling, I mean, I was out for the tour of the US and posed some questions to Ahmad, and he said even then, why not stay here for the rest of my life? You know, I love this club. I want to stay here. And he's always putting smiles on faces. He's a really warm-hearted kid, really humble kid, and does everything right. So I think a really, really good situation for Manchester United to be in when it's been so turgid. It's been so difficult in these early stages for Ruben Amorim, but really good to get Ahmad locked down to a long-term contract till 2020.
So now that's been done, what's the next thing on the agenda for Manchester United? Ahmad is a tick boxed off. What's the next thing to happen there?
Of course, Manchester United would like to bring players in to help Ruben Amorim with this new ideology, with these new principles, with a new formation, a new style of football. It's about outgoings, Dave. It's about outgoings. Manchester United are at the brink of PSR and the finances are tight. Marcus Rashford would bring in something, but that's looking like a loan to the end of the season, if at all any. Anthony is a player that could be looked at in terms of another loan. Could we see Saudi Arabia coming for the likes of Casemiro, who has a lucrative contract for the next couple of years? So it's very much being able to move players out before Manchester United could get players in. If I'm looking at a priority place to start for Manchester United to help Ruben Amorim, me personally, I'm looking at wing-backs. So essential to how Ruben Amorim wants to play. Jamie Carragher's done some really good pieces on Monday Night Football and other pieces highlighting just how much of a deficiency Manchester United have in that area. Nusra Mazraoui is a competent footballer, but isn't going to give you that chance creation, isn't going to give you that engine up and down. And Dalot is also a competent footballer, but is not suited as a left wing-back. So I think that would be massively beneficial to Manchester United. A forward player as well, if Marcus Rashford is going to leave. And also Joshua Zirkzee has found it difficult, as has Højlund. So I think forward and wing-backs would definitely be top of my list.
And there's a big FA Cup game this weekend.
Just a big one, just a little one. Bit of both.
Our senior reporter Melissa Reddy caught up with the Athletic's Manchester United correspondent Laurie Whitwell. He believes it's far from ideal for Marcus Rashford to go out on loan this month, particularly if United have to contribute to his wages.
Feels like that's the only way that a club is going to take him. You know, you look at AC Milan, Borussia Dortmund, Juventus. Those are big clubs, but they're not clubs that can pay the kind of wages that Marcus Rashford is on. You know, above £300,000 a week, we believe. So there's going to be some subsidising going on there, and that feels to me a very unsatisfactory situation. But I suppose on the flip side, if he goes and does produce like you think he could do in Italy for sure, then that increases his transfer value at the end of the season. We saw it with Jadon Sancho at Borussia Dortmund. OK, it wasn't a huge transfer fee that he got from Chelsea in the end, but it was at least a loan that was seen as increasing his appeal to clubs.
We're waiting to hear from Arne Slot and Eddie Howe. Both are coming for you on the way very shortly, right here on Good Morning Transfers.